So welcome to this first in a series of the Ministerial Association's focus on supporting churches. I'm Rosemary Calderalo. I'm the president this year of the Ministerial Association. And I want to thank the members of the association board who helped put this together: Patricia Horn, Sharon Watson, JoAnn Santonocito, and Javi Richards. And our next two sessions are on July 21st and September 15th. And I know you've probably already gotten the information about this, but we're kicking it off with the topic of growing your church, right? And before I introduce our panelists, I just want to do the typical Zoom etiquette thing, which is, I know you probably could see people's hands, but it always is better if you could use the hands up function. If you have a question, we are going to save questions for the end. You're welcome to put them in the chat also. And we ask that you do stay on mute just to minimize noise, since we're in so many different environments. And now that it's warmer in most areas, we have windows open. So that makes it a little harder. So thank you. So thanks for being here. And I'm delighted to welcome our three panelists: JoAnn Santonocito from the Attunement Spiritualist Chapel, Pamela Bollinger, the Summerland Spiritualist Church of the Comforter, and Charvonne Carlson from the Church of Peace, a spiritualist center. And so what I'm going to ask these wonderful women to do, as I spotlight them first. So I'm just going to ask the three of you to go through answering these questions to start us off, and then hopefully we'll have time for lots of questions and some good discussion. So if you could just generally introduce yourself and how you came into spiritualism, right? What was your path? Because the path has to come first before the church, right? So, Pam, would you like to start us off?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Pam Bollinger from the Summerland Spiritualist Church in Santa Barbara, California. I've currently have my credentials as an ordained minister, a national spiritualist teacher, certified medium, and commissioned spiritualist healer. I'm a member of the Morris Pratt Institute and a member of ISF, and currently serve as the NSAC missionary director. So my journey for finding a church where I felt at home started when I was really young, going to different Sunday schools, going with friends. We lived down the street from a church, a Presbyterian church. So I tried that out for a while, but didn't really fit, although we'd go there on Easters and things like that. And never really found anything where I really felt at home. So my mom really was an example of teaching the golden rule. So that was kind of, our religion. We didn't really have a formal religion. It was just live by the golden rule, treat others respectfully as you would want to be treated. So it was I had just turned 60, I think, when we moved from the Bay Area to the Santa Barbara area in a little town called Carpinteria here. And it was about 3 years I was going to the Buddhist center. I'd go off into the Buddhist center. And I loved the meditation. I loved how it felt. But one day I was late. And so I thought, I'm not going to go in there when everybody's in meditation. So I decided to go home. And I was coming down the street, Garden Street, it's called, when I noticed this little church, the Summerland Spiritualist Church of the Comforter. And it caught my eye. It's very small, but something about it, energy or something, caught my eye. And the service was going to start in 10 minutes. I said healing service and then the regular service at 11. So I thought, well, I have 10 minutes. I'm just going to check this out. I did not know what a spiritualist church was, never heard of it. That name, spiritualist, I've heard of spiritual, but not spiritualist. So I went in and I kind of sat in the very back and kind of just took it all in. The healing portion was going on, the hands-on healing. It was the Reverend Dr. Sandra Cook, who was the pastor at that time. And I thought, well, that doesn't look too scary. I'll go sit in the healing chair. So I did. It was very nice. I felt very comfortable, very relaxed. And then she talked and she said, well, this was going to be her last service because she was moving to Arizona. And the new pastor would be coming in a few weeks. And my thoughts were, oh, great. This is feeling kind of good. And now she's leaving. but maybe I'll come back when the new pastor comes. But anyway, at the end, she said she was going to start doing messages. Well, mediumship was something I was not aware of at all, especially in a church service. I'd had some friends who had gone for readings here and there, but I never went with them. I was like, oh no, I don't want anybody telling me what I am or what to do. So I was a little stubborn and resistant. But anyway, she came to me with a message from my grandmother and my great-grandmother, who came in together and gave a very profound message, which confirmed a dream visit I had just recently had with them about an important family member in our family. And it was, well, I think some of you have had that experience where you're just in awe, and it's that feeling of, yes, life continues and you don't have a doubt. So it was wonderful. I went home that day. I was stuck in traffic. And it was so strange because she had also given me a message about Tinkerbell, which is, I loved Tinkerbell as a little kid. And I named my parakeet Tinkerbell because I loved Tinkerbell so much. So as I was stuck in traffic on the way home, I was kind of just taking all this in and letting it settle in. And I was stuck behind a car with a decal of Tinkerbell on it. And I thought, well, this is really weird. And I had my radio on, and then that song, "We Are Spirits in a Material World," came on. And I thought, well, I mean, it wasn't anything scary. It was like kind of light and just joyful and filled with so much feeling of love and connection of spirit. So I thought, well, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go give it a try with the new pastor. So I did, and it was the Reverend Judy Campbell Clark, who was the new pastor. She was so warm, so inviting, so encouraging. That was it for me. I came every week, attended unfoldment classes, became secretary of the board later on. It took me a year to become a member because I had to feel that really at first. I attended conventions, and then Judy encouraged me to take the pastoral skills in 2012, which I did. It was such a joy to go to Lilydale and stay there for 2 weeks under the mentorship of the late Reverend Sharon Snowman, who was the teacher, and met Rosemary at some of the conventions. So she was encouraging as well. So that's my story. And I've been there. I've been served as pastor now since 2015.
Thanks, Pam. Charvonne, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm Charvonne Carlson. I'm currently the director of Church of Peace, a spiritualist center. We reopened. I don't know what you call it. I'm a new charter that's not a new charter. And we restarted it, and it is online. Reverend Debbie Mallison is the founder of the Church of Peace. Anyway, I am a certified medium, commissioned healer, and national spiritualist teacher. I'm also currently the president of the Licensing Minister and Certified Medium Society. These are a lot of words.
And so how did you get there, right? How did you get to
How did I get here? I got here because I have an activist background, and so I was very involved in my community. And at the time, I was I was on the board of a homeless outreach group, and First Spiritualist Church of West Dallas was the first one to say, yes, we will be a warming station, because I live in Wisconsin and we all know how cold it gets, but there's a degree that it has to be before they open up warming stations in the city for people to come in, and the wind chill doesn't count. So yeah, it's 30 degrees, but if we have -25 wind, it's -25 with the wind chill, doesn't matter that it's 30 degrees. So First Spiritualist Church of West Dallas, we called, they said yes immediately. We brought in our homeless our houseless to come in, and they stayed the night. And I walked in there and I was like, oh, this is a church? This is a different church. I've never heard of this. Now, further back, I'm a transplant from Los Angeles. I was all up in the metaphysical community. I worked at the Psychic Eye bookshop down by Venice Beach. I read all the books. I knew who Louise Hayes was, um, and never heard anything about spiritualist or spiritualism, that it was a religion, or like Pam, I've heard of spiritual and being spiritual, but never heard of it as like an organization or a group or, a religion. So in this church, I was like, oh, spiritualist church. Okay. And I picked up a flyer and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And I've also church topped like Pam. I've gone to the Buddhist temple. I've been to the synagogue. I've done them all. And nothing ever quite, everything was beautiful. I have no disparaging comments of any of it. It just didn't fit. Like there was a piece missing. So I was like, oh, I'll try their service on Sunday. So I went on Sunday and I sat in the front because I really want to know what was going on. I know most people try to sit in the back of the class. I'm that person that sits in the front of the class. And I got a message during the service, and I wasn't daunted by it, or I was like, oh, great. Thanks for bringing grandma. Because I grew up in a family where communicating with people or having your loved ones visit you was part of my growing up. It wasn't considered weird. I mean, nobody in my family were spiritualists or would call themselves mediums, but yeah, we dreamt about grandpa last night and he saw that you moved his chair and we probably should move it back, or we're going to ignore him. We even used to play little games to see if they would notice what we did in the house. Yeah, we were that family. So the mediumship part isn't what really got me. It was the healing part, the healing service portion, the medium, that the thought of sitting in church and being able to still your mind and feel healing light flow through you and throughout the room, and you can share with others and you can feel it for yourself in church. That was everything to me. That was the like ding ding ding, I'm here. This is because I really do value being still, and I do value that, taking the time to be quiet and to be still and to be part of an organization that practices it and makes it an integral part of how the organization, the religion is moved, was everything I needed. Like Pam, I did wait. I wait longer before becoming a member because my wife told me, Charvonne, you join everything and you need, you can't become a member for a year. So I waited 2 months. And then since then, this is where I am.
Thank you. Thanks. And JoAnn?
Well, I'm JoAnn Santonocito. Most of you know me as the NSAC secretary. I'm also an ordained minister, and I pastor 2 churches right now. The church that a small group of us founded about 5 years ago is the Attunement Spiritualist Chapel in Hamburg, New York. And then I also just started pastoring the Plymouth Spiritualist Church out in Rochester, New York, which is considered the mother church of spiritualism. So I kind of started out in a Catholic my whole life. Never really agreed with me. Parts did, but some didn't. But I got into a 12-step program, and I met a new friend about 5 years after that, and she would start talking about this church and the philosophy, and I would talk about the philosophy about this 12-step program, and it was so parallel. One Sunday I went to church with her, and I really never looked back. It took me about 6 months to become a member, but when the church knew that I could do building maintenance and repair, they had me jump right in. And I literally, as soon as I became a member, it was very shortly after that, I started off as a trustee on the board, worked my way all the way up to vice president and president. When I was vice president, we didn't have, this church never had a pastor or pastoral committee. So I started doing just on my own, going to visit people. And that's when I knew being an ordained minister was actually where it was all at. So that kind of started my trekking through MPI and everything else. I left that church about 5 years ago and decided to venture out. And we have a flourishing church right now. We have over 23 members, and we seem to get new people, and it grows every day. The Plymouth church is an old church, but it's struggling right now. So we have a lot of diversity here. So it's going to be interesting.
Thank you. Great. So kind of continuing in that line, and we'll go back to Pam again. So how did you first get involved in running a church? Right. I know some of you have kind of touched on this, but did you go right into being a pastor or director, have other roles first? But overall, what drew you to the leadership position?
Well, I got appointed as secretary on the board quite early on in becoming a member. So that kind of got me involved with how it was run. And I was secretary for quite a few years. So I became pastor, not because of anything that I was trying to attain. It was at the transition to spirit of my dear friend Judy, the pastor of the church, who was diagnosed with leukemia in 2015 and passed away very quickly after her diagnosis in the hospital. So she had encouraged me to take the pastor skills, and I was going, I don't want to be a pastor, I just want to be a support person. But she encouraged me, and so I did, and I was really grateful because it was really such a step along the way without knowing what was coming down the line here. And I'm glad they call it minister skills now, because it makes more sense to work on your ministry, because lots of people don't want to be pastor. So when she was ill, she had said, if anything happens to me, would you step up? And I went, bleep, no, I do not. That is not what I want. No, I just want to, be a support person for you. I loved working on the newsletter, helping with the unfoldment classes, but I could see that she was very ill. And so it all moved very, very quickly. So after she passed to spirit, the weirdest thing was I was up in the Bay Area at my nephew's wedding, and Luell, a member of our church, was at the hospital, and she said, Judy just passed away. Within that hour, I was on the way to visit an old friend of mine from childhood that was ill, and my husband was driving. My mom and I were in the car. This was up in the Bay Area, and I was trying to process this, like, what's going to happen now? And we passed this two buildings, the Step Up building and the Campbell building. Well, Judy and Luell had written a song. It's in our spiritualist hymnal called Step Up. So when I saw the words on that building, Step Up, I was like, oh my God, she's been gone for an hour and she's already coming and telling me messages. And next it was the Campbell building, and her name was Judy Campbell Clark. So I thought, okay, this is okay. When I get back, I got to do something fast. So I think I had finished lesson 29. I had my mediumship certification, and I went on and proceeded to finish all my credentials. I got mentored by the late Reverend James Earhart, who was kind of keeping an eye out. I got approved as the student minister. So with the help and support of our wonderful congregation, it was just a village came together to continue moving forward. So anyway, Spirit's been working with us and all the wonderful people at our church. So I'm very grateful. That's how that all started. And as I said, Judy encouraged me to go to conventions. So I had been attending conventions for years, and that was very helpful to have an understanding and a grasp of how the organization worked. So I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Should we go back to Charvonne?
So the question is, how do I end up where I am, right?
Yeah, what drew you to the leadership position, and how did you first get
Lord
involved in
have
running a
mercy.
church?
That's a good question. Well, I guess if I'm sure some of you know me, that I rarely say no to anything. Because I love being of help and I love fixing things and I love, helping. I'm like the cheerleader, and sometimes maybe too cheerleading, but I'm the cheerleader. Like I want to support everybody. I think everybody should be successful. I don't see any reason why. If you need my help, hey, I'll do it. So in my church, I had eventually ended up on the board as trustee. And I don't know if no, I never was trustee. I was treasurer. Um, and then I was serving. I was asked to do mediumship from the platform because somebody wouldn't show up. And I remember Stacy pulling me aside. It's like, okay, I got to test you first. And I was like, but I don't want to do it. Mediumship was the last thing I wanted to do. It was not, I loved healing. Healing was everything to me. That's why I was there. I'm all about the healing. And I'm like, okay, we can test me. So apparently I passed the test because the next thing you know, I'm serving the platform and doing mediumship. When I started my studies, it was really just to get become a commissioned healer. Really, that was. But I'm also got this practical brain of mine that says, well, if you're doing it, you might as well just do all of it and get it over, be done with it. I don't know why I thought that. But so within, I think it was 2 years process, I I was certified, commissioned national spiritual teacher, but I put my foot down about pastor because I really felt like pastor is a calling, or I need to feel it. I need to, this is just my personal guidance. I need to feel it in a way that is unquestioning, because my idea of the ideal pastor or minister of a church is someone who truly wants to get in there and be with the people and be an inspiration and a spiritual counsel and deliver both the tough love and the soft love, and knowing the balance of it. I just, and I had a lot of pastors and ministers in my life that I would look at and go, God, you guys are so awesome. It's just that softness, that constant, just truly always seeing the best in people. And I had my days where I didn't. So I felt like, well, that's something I'm going to have to work on, and we'll see how that goes. But I really feel like it needs to be a calling. Mediumship spirit really pushed me hard on the mediumship aspect of my development. So, and it turns out that was a calling that I was just ignoring. And then COVID happened, as we know. And then Reverend Debbie said, I'm back to that's First Spiritualist Church. Why don't you start my charter? She realized that she asked me this for 1.5 years. She's like, you have such good ideas. I think you'll do really well. You will have such a good, she wasn't pushy, but it was like, I'm like, oh, we should think about this. And she's like, well, my charter, Debbie, I didn't say I wanted to start a church. I'm just sharing some ideas. She's like, well, I think you do good. So I think I woke up one morning and I just was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. And here I am. So currently I'm the director, and I still resist the being called the pastor of any kind. I am a director. And our church is membership wise, we're a little slow, but attendance wise, in terms and the things that we brought in and everything, we're growing we're pretty strong. We're pretty stable, and we're pretty strong financially and the community building way. So that's what drew me.
Thank you.
Because I don't know how to say no.
JoAnn?
Well, it probably took me like a year being a member before I became a trustee. But I had served on, zoning boards, planning boards, executive boards of unions. So I knew the network and how boards were supposed to be run. And I knew all of those details. And I think that kind of, helped me. Did I seek it out? I think it sought me out. And I just felt comfortable in those roles. I moved my way up to vice president, then president. And while president, I was always filling in for the treasurer or the secretary. So I got to know the entire dynamic of how a church was, the business end was run. Meanwhile, I was still doing the visiting of the sick because the pastoral committee was like, no, we don't want to do that. You do that. So, that really made the catalyst that I knew ordination and being pastor was really, like Charvonne said, it is a calling. And it's been my passion. So when we broke off and started the new church, I did not want any position on the board. I wanted pastor. I wanted to find the people to serve the church. I wanted to, take care of that end and the spiritual aspect of the church. And that has worked out well. And for a new church, it's taken us, took us about 4 years to get really off the ground. And I'd have to say COVID in all aspects has been a blessing to the church because we have just exploded in the past year. So, I don't think I've chosen any job. I think the job has chosen me. And just because of my understanding and skills and knowing, it's all about giving it back. So.
Thank you. And I'm just struck with each one of you how there is nothing really linear about this path, that there is a lot of different layers that brought you to the moment, and accepting where you were being led. So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So the next question is really getting down into the pastoral activities and growing the church. That's, you shared what drew you to spiritualism, how you got in your roles. And now, how do you grow the church in numbers and grow the ways you can support the spiritual development of members overall? So growing in two different ways at a minimum, both in numbers, because of course we want to see our churches grow and flourish and get larger, but also paying attention to the individuality of members and supporters growth. So I'll just throw it open. Who'd like to go first on that? Oh, Pam's got her hand up already. Okay.
Well, I think for me, when I came to the spiritualist church, one of the greatest joys was, unlike the Buddhist center, it was a place where I could express my own spirituality, my own individual spirituality. And it's like each person there was an individual expressing their own individuality. And I loved that. And so when I did step into the pastor role, it's like, how do you, be the space holder at this time and place that allows each and every member to express and unfold their own individual spirit so that they can learn and grow. And I think there was such a good example Judy had set previously, where she had been inviting wonderful speakers and guests and encouraging everyone to continue their education. The church board made it possible to help those who wanted to take Morris Pratt with some scholarships to help them out if they needed it. So it was always an encouragement of individual growth, but as well as that whole draw of presenting spiritualism as a way of life and having events and people that were so passionate about it and that drew people to the church. So we have had many in person over the years, wonderful presenters, teachers. It's just been amazing. And that all kind of came to a halt with COVID. So our last in-person presenter was Robin Hodson. It was his third time at Santa Barbara. He had spent a week, and we had such a wonderful outturn of people coming to all the workshops. And I think that really helped us grow. When I think when Judy passed away in 2015, we had 22 members. And right before COVID, we had 57. Now, I think, so that grew a lot. It might shrink again because of the COVID. I think we lost some members, but that's to be determined. But I think encouraging each member and trying to help them. I think also, well, I know what I wanted to say was one thing that's happened that really brought us together was the ISF events. And so at the last ISF event in the UK, 10 of us from our congregation went over to the UK. So talk about a group together, like minds, but each taking, classes that they wanted to explore and learn about. So the energy has just been phenomenal. I think also I want to say that without our wonderful board, and like today, there's 3 of our folks from my church are here on this meeting. Paul Schaefer, who's vice president treasurer, Eva Vega's our president, and Michael Staples, who is a commissioned healer and certified medium, is my pastoral assistant who served on the board before. So I think their participation and encouraging the participation of congregants to be involved is the way to grow things. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. JoAnn or Charvonne would like to go next?
I'll cut Charvonne off.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll talk about attunement first, because that church started with nothing. We literally started with the 13 or 15 members required to start a charter, and it fluttered at first. We did the newspaper advertising. We did the letter campaign to the town that we're in. We did the, what do they call it? The everyday mailing, those oversized postcards you get in the mail. We've done all that type of segregated mailings, and it would bring a person in now and again, but, not consistent. Then literally COVID. We were only closed during the literally weeks. I don't even think it was 6 weeks that in the state of New York, we had to remain closed. We only had a few members, so we could sit people 6 feet apart. So we're meeting a hotel. The hotel said you could meet. So that's what we did. And being open, even early, I was doing, the Facebook services and stuff way before COVID. I actually quit when COVID started because everybody else was doing it. But we were doing, the Facebook services and putting the lecture up on Facebook and all that type of stuff. Never really took off until COVID. We were a door that was open for people to come in. And our best advertising is the word of mouth. There was a Christian spiritualist church that closed down in Buffalo. They happened to call me up as the pastor of attunement and said, look, all of the material things that we have, we're closing the church, has to go to another religious spiritual organization. Are you interested? I'm like, I know all the churches out here. Absolutely. And from that, some of their people are trickling in. They're not even trickling anymore. The word is spreading so fast. Every week I have new people coming in. Like I said, this past year, our membership has doubled. We're up to 20 some odd people. And we took a dive before COVID. But it's about the fellowship. I really don't think it's about the messages or the healing or the speaker. It's really about the fellowship. We all, like I said, we're in a hotel. We go to lunch afterwards. So there's anywhere from 5 to 25 people who literally go to a restaurant, sit and talk about spiritualism for another 2-3 hours. And it's that camaraderie. It's that friendship with spiritualism, and that we could talk about different aspects. To me, it's always been the philosophy. And it's really exciting to see when a church is growing, because it makes all those efforts and all those days. I would go to church and have 2 people, or go to church and have 5 people, and you struggle because you as a pastor, you set everything up all week, and you get there and you're like, okay, let's go. But now, I mean, we just bought another 15 hymnals because we ran out. So yeah, growth is a good thing, and COVID in the aspect has really helped the church. And I think only because we stayed open as much as we could, to be there for the public, and the public has definitely returned the favor.
Thank you.
Now that JoAnn's done cutting me off. So I'm brand new, like October. Like, I don't even know if we've hit our 6 months yet. And I'm doing it during COVID. Sometimes I wonder if I ever think anything through. And we are uniquely in our position is we don't have a building. So we're online. Everything we do is online. And part of my passion about being online is because the members that I have so far that have committed to being members of our church are so spread out across the country because they have nothing near them. They have nothing where they are. So when they find out that I'm a church, I'm online and I'm staying online, even if I get a building, we will always be online. We'll always have that online presence. They are so grateful to that. And that's what motivates them to join. Our membership numbers are small because I restarted a church. So I didn't get the required 2-year process of building up 15 people before applying for the charter, of taking over a charter. And being online, what's interesting about our services on Wednesday nights, because I love all y'all, but everybody's on Sunday. What's interesting about it is that half the attendants are people from other churches. And then that was just in the past couple months, I actually had to sit down and say, okay, I got to rethink our marketing plan. I got to rethink our focus, because while I love every spiritualist that I've met and every NSAC member that I've come in contact with, and you all still call me and all that fun stuff, and I love you, I can't, if I want a membership, you guys are already established in your places. And so, and because I've got the unique presence of being online, who I market to has to be those who don't already know about us, who are not already established in the spiritualist religion or in spiritualism, who need to know that we're here, which is daunting and absolutely right up my alley, because I love spiritualism so much. Of course, I wanted to be out there and everybody know about us, and those who really are looking for that place that like I did when I found, or Pam, what Pam was saying, or JoAnn, what she was saying. I want them to be able to, and because we have an online world now, I mean, this is our new world. They're online. I want them to be able to go, oh, let me see what that's about. So our marketing strategy is completely different in that it's not a community of in my small town of West Dallas, it's the global community. So I have to think about, okay, so if I offer services or if I offer classes and I've got people in Australia or the UK who wants to take them, how do I position this so that they can participate, and which requires growing. And then the other part of it is that we have so many incredible people who have said yes to, what do you need me to do to help you grow? What do you need? And I'll say, well, we have a small congregation and I'm not sure if anybody's going to buy a ticket for the class, and that's okay. What do you need us to do? We don't care. We're here for you. How can you support us? And I think the biggest was when we had Paul Jacobs doing that YouTube channel thing that he did for our Let's Talk Spirit on YouTube. His biggest thing was, I love this because you're getting in front of a new audience, and we're going to bring it to yet another group. let me know what you need me to do in the future. We will figure it out. Don't worry about all that other stuff that you're worried about. Let's figure this out together. And he's not the only one. I mean, we have others that have been saying to us. So the support that we're getting from people who are already established in their own right and in their own community saying, we're going to work with you because we love what you're doing. Now, the administrative, technical, behind the scenes side, website, having a website. And I'm, not just your free website that you get or the cheap. No, you got to have somebody who goes in there and knows how to organize those pictures and make the colors right. And luckily I have Angela. Everybody should have an Angela, but you don't get mine, is what I tell everybody. Because when that comes to that setting up that marketing, she knows how to reach out and have those conversations. She knows how to help get the website set up, the newsletter. If you see our newsletter, it's like a book. And then I just keep plugging forward. Our Let's Talk Lyceum is extremely popular. And we enjoy that, the people that come. So it's, like I said, we're growing now because we're still pretty much babies, but financially we're doing well. For less than 6 months, we've done well in terms of being able to pay for our website, pay for our Zoom link, and start paying speakers is that's our goal, is to like pay people to show up, even though they're not asking for it. We still want to honor their time in some way of saying thank you for helping us, because I love giving back. I believe the one Christian holdover is the tithing thing, and so I really believe that you give back. You got to give back. And because I was on the board of a nonprofit that was about feeding in the community, and in our budget, when we would plan our budget, the line item was 10% tithing back to the community that we're serving. So how do we do that? And that was beautiful to me. Then that's one of the things. I've been on a lot of boards. So I took a lot of that, the business aspect and the accounting aspect and the treasurer planning aspect, and I brought that in, and I see that all those times I thought, why am I at another board meeting? It's paying off because I'm able to utilize all of that. And then of course the younger energy is what I'm drawing towards, because in order to continue, I mean, we have an organization, but if we want to keep having an organization, we need the younger groups and younger people to come in and to be a part of it. And part of doing that is figuring out ways to market to them in a way that they are like, okay, I want to know what that's about, which means moving away from, it's kind of like any group, you have your code words, you just say X, like we'll say Lyceum, we know what we mean, but the outside person has no idea what the heck that is, or it's an old word holdover, it's triggering for them, or you never know, right? So it's also the language, it's using the language. And because of my activism and my equality aspect of everything, I bring in, like, we are inclusive, we are diverse, and how do we continue to maintain that from the beginning? This is not something we're going to be trying to put in later. We're going to start it from day one. And I think it has helped because my secretary is part Native American. Our services are very diversely attended. We have a diverse group that comes. I still get phone calls, or I get emails, or I get letters of, oh my God, I loved what your website. I felt like I was at home, like you wouldn't judge me. You wouldn't say I wasn't. So it's very important to me to have that up front, a part of the whole thing. So I don't know if that answered the question, but it feels like I did.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think, and I know that everybody on this meeting can feel all the energy and the love coming through all of the answers. We just have a couple more questions before we'll open it up. I know you've touched on this a little bit, but in general, what are the lessons learned so far, and some of the challenges? Maybe go a little deeper into that. And let us know more specifically what you love about your work. I'd like to kick off. Okay, Pam. Pam's on it. Okay, you're gonna.
I'm just going in order. I think the greatest challenge right now is the technology and having that balance between in-person and virtual, because JoAnn and Charvonne, you are such pioneers right now going forward. I'm inspired by you both. And our church started in 1891. And so it's an old church. So when we've just been back 3 weeks in person, and we're doing the hybrid service. Our board did something wonderful, which is to invest in, it's called the OWL, and it's a camera speaker that kind of follows the voice and imagery. So so the people that are joining in from Zoom can kind of see the congregation. So that's great that it's not a static picture of just me or just the medium or but it's the whole church. So that's very good. We have had an unstable internet connection, which we're working on, and that has been very challenging as we've gotten booted off during services. And this last week, the medium was giving a message to someone on the Zoom, and right when our link broke and our internet connection went off. However, we were able to get back on with another computer, and Eva was doing the mediumship. She held the link and the person stayed on the Zoom, so she got to finish her message. But actually, that's kind of an exciting challenge because we're working with spirit, we're working with one another, we're working with the new technology. Charvonne, yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that some people coming in are from all over, and that's another challenge coming up. What about membership? Whose members are they? It could pose interesting situations because we have our dual membership bylaw. So how's that going to work? Anyway, that just popped in my mind. So I see some challenges there as well. I also think that it's very important to have the Zoom abilities because it's expanded everything so much. And it's important, I think, as we go forward, the technology to be able to have more interactivity with the people coming in from Zoom. We're working on putting up a screen behind the podium so that the people in the congregation can see the Zoom people, and that will have us be able to be more interactive when we work out all those little technicalities. And I think we need that to have great mediums coming in and speakers. I think another challenge we've had is to keep the protocols going with COVID and being respectful of distancing still or wearing a mask, because we've stopped the potlucks. We haven't, what I should say is we haven't gone back to doing the potlucks, which that fellowship is so important. And I had someone just send me an email who's been coming on Zoom, and she goes, can we have a social hour afterwards by keeping us on the Zoom? So that's another challenge. We'll see how that works to try to figure that out. So I think making everyone feel comfortable and feel at home in person, as well as, serving those who are coming in virtually, that balance will be the big challenge coming forward. But I think we can do it. I'm so blessed to have such a wonderful board who really is so dedicated, leaves the spiritual to me, but we have this wonderful cooperation that I am so fortunate to say that it's been a blessing, all the people on the board and all the work they've been doing to keep the church functioning through these times. So my passion, joy is, like I said before, the individual strengths, gifts, loving spirits that are the congregants. The church is the people. The church is the spirit and those who come to attend and come together. So I'm grateful for all the love and dedicated support that is involved at our church. Thanks.
Thank you.
And knowing and getting to meet all you and doing things like this is great. Thank you.
Okay, Charvonne, you're ready to go next?
I'm ready to go. I'm cut JoAnn off now. Okay, so our challenge, or at least my challenge, No, it's hour. So our biggest challenge is, as Pam brought up, the membership. So I would say about half, if not over half of the people that come to our services on Wednesday night are members of other churches. And it's not that they don't like their church. It's Wednesday night. It's like the midweek pick me up, and they love that. And I love that they're there, and I have no problem. Like I said, this other challenge is having members that, because they love being members of our church, they don't have time for the midweek services. So I don't get to see them as often. So what I've done is I've created the members meet and greet once a month. So if you're a member of our church, I say, okay, we're going to meet once a month, and I give a date and time where we just go into Zoom, and the members can meet and greet and talk and what have you. The first one was pretty good, I thought. We have another one coming. I just started it. So thinking, and that was the other thing, is too, thinking of ways to keep the members engaged that we do have, feeling like this is my church. This is the church that I belong to. This is my spiritual home. So I came up with that idea. The other idea I came up with is, if you have, letting them advertise in our newsletter of the things that they're doing, or what's going on with them. If there's anything that they, if you're a member of our church, you get a space in our newsletter to just talk about, like, if you're running a class, or if you're doing a trip, or if you just want to talk, you get that space. I give you that space in our newsletter because you are a member. So again, that feeling of like, this is my church, this is our organization. I'm also very laid back about, I don't pressure anybody into, you have to do this, or I need you to do that, or you must do this. It is truly, I prefer you to be walking in your passion in service in my church or I hate saying that, but in our church, working in your passion and service than doing something because it needs to be done and nobody else won't do it. Because that's, in my mind, that's my job.
Mhm.
That's my job, to fill in the grunt work, to fill in the stuff that people don't really want to focus on. Because I want you to feel like, oh my God, I get to express myself when I'm involved in my church community. I get to be me. I get to continue to grow and develop spiritually. And she's not pressuring me that I need to do this or I need to do that in order to be a part of this church. I could just be me in the church. And that's a challenge as well, in terms of, right now, I just have a secretary and it's me, but it's also rewarding because I know that when any of the members that we currently have say, Charvonne, I want to do XYZ, I know they want to do XYZ. And that to me is more important. It is more important for me to know that they are passionately, yes, that is something I want to do. And we have a couple of our church members who are going through things, and I'm totally laid back about it. There is no weird, like, okay, you weren't there the past 2 Sundays and I gotta, I mean, some of us come from those churches, especially in the mainstream Christian type churches, where if you're not in service for a month, they're not calling you because they really care about you. They're calling you because they're like, where's my tithing? That's the other thing, is moving the mindset away from tithing. Moving that mindset and saying, it is not about what I get every Sunday or every service. It's about, because we're online, people will just literally send us money. They never came to a service and they send us money because they just love that we're there. They want to support that. The other bigger challenge with especially starting online and being an online church, is, how do I balance the time differences with whatever we offer? Because we're a global community that I'm marketing to. I'm not marketing to just my town. I'm marketing to the world. And how do I balance that time difference? How do I figure out, okay, so I'm learning how to read analytics and I'm learning how to, read all of those things online that I never thought I would do. And that's challenging in and of itself, but it's exciting. And then and then of course, what do you do with all of that information, right? So one of the biggest challenges is we get a lot of traffic on our posts. Some of our posts get like 1,500 hits, not one ticket bought. So how do you, what am I missing? Well, how is it that I'm getting in front of you, but you're not moving to the next step? And I have people who will let me just talk their ear off. And that really helps, having that supportive community that I can call and go, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to mess it up. And they'll say, first of all, you started in October. What do you expect? What? And second of all, we know you're impatient, but we need you to have patience. And you really need to calm down and just enjoy the journey. Enjoy what you have. Charvonne, we need you to enjoy what you have, because you have done a lot, even though you can't see it. You've done a lot. So that's the other thing that has been really helpful, because in my own world, I'm all like, it's got to be perfect. I got to make sure I'm giving it all. I got to make sure I'm on top of things. I want us to be bigger than life. I want everybody to know. I want us to hit every home, and nobody will be walking around going, what's a spiritualist again? They're going to know. And then, and then calming down, and then having these grounded support system and mentors. I have 2 incredible mentors that are working with me behind the scenes, who literally ground me, who literally go, I need you to breathe and I need you to calm down and you're fine. I'm like, but I don't have the numbers yet for the membership and I don't have this. Will you calm down? You're doing great. And we're getting a lot of outside support as well with the teachers, like I was saying earlier, people who are not in the spiritualist community, people who are not spiritualists technically, who are saying, what do you need? We'll help. And one of my recent breakdowns with my mentor is, she said to me, she goes, I'm going to need you to understand it takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day. She's like, you're doing good. You're doing good. Trust that. So those are my personal challenges, because I think we're doing great, but then I melt. So there's that. My passion, but the biggest passion about this is knowing we are reaching people, reaching one, teaching one. I lost 2 potential members to other churches, and that was the greatest thing ever. And the reason why I say that is because they saw me online. They reached out to me and they talked to me and they asked me about it, but they preferred to have something in their town, and they were near a church in their neighborhood or in their area. But she said, I remember one of them saying to me, thank you so much for spending that time with me and talking to me, because I was really scared that this wasn't going to be a home, that this wasn't going to be inclusive, that I wasn't going to fit. And because I had visited a lot of different churches in that area, I was like, you're going to love it there. I don't even know what you're complaining about. It's going to be great. And so she ended up joining that church and not ours. And she told me, don't be upset. I'm like, I'm not upset at all, because my goal is to bring you to spiritualism and to be comfortable serving where it is that you can be of best service and where you're getting your spiritual tank filled. That's my goal. Mm-hmm. Whether you join my church or not is irrelevant, but knowing that there is a place that you can call home for your spiritual and development is all that really. So I think it's a blessing. It could also be a curse, but the fact that I'm very open that way. Every single one of the people that have so far signed up to be members, I have actually kind of challenged them to go check out other churches first and make sure before you decide to be a member of my church. And I know that sounds crazy. Like I should be like, okay, you want to be a member? I'm like, no, I want you to make sure that you can see, and you know everything that's out there and everything that's, I want you to know all the opportunities that life has to offer you. And I want that to be a buffet display in front of you, because that's who I am. So staying true to my authentic self, even if technically it could make my numbers not as high as they could be, is more important to me. But that is what being a spiritualist is in my mind. And then in terms of running our online church, that's how I do it. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. And JoAnn?
I think, one of the biggest lessons learned, especially as a pastor, is to find the passion of the member and put them with their passion. Everybody comes into a church with talents, and you have to figure out where they're going to be the most happiest. Because once they start giving back, you just see them blossom. That's probably the best thing about the church, is to watching people come out of their shell and blossom. But I have two sets of challenges. With the Attunement Spiritualist Chapel, we only have the hotel room, the meeting room, for 4 hours. Well, I'm there an hour early because certain members want to have personal conversations. Service is a little over an hour. So any fundraising or classes that we do have to be really shrunk down. So that limits us. And with COVID, we haven't done any fundraising in 2.5 years, almost 3 years now, which is fine because we only have a small rent. We only have a small insurance policy, so that helps us expenditure wise. I'm not strapped to a board saying, look, we have $1,500 of bills, or what are you bringing in? So, those challenges are for the attunement. But with Plymouth came with its own set of challenges. That church has been around since 1904. They, I have somebody I've been trying to get to the church, ordained in NSAC, lives a half an hour away, went to that church in 1970 something, had such a bad experience, won't walk through the door. So it has that attitude out in the public, is that you say Plymouth Spiritual, I ain't going there. This happened to me, that happened to me. So we have those challenges that we're fighting now, which is tough because they're new to me. I mean, I've always come from, hey, I'm here, come if you want, don't see what it's like, come and stay. But these are people who are just the name of the church, and nope, I'm not going, no way you'll get me back to the door. So that's been tough. I mean, I've been blessed because both boards work with me. With Attunement, I made one phone call this week. Hey, I need more hymnals. How many do you want? I don't know. We'll just buy 10. Okay. And 10 were bought. So it's been very good that way. Hey, I want to hold this class. Can I? I think we're going to try to, maybe if we sneak out of the hotel a few minutes late, they won't ding us. And they don't. They've been very, very good to us. We connected with a hotel that had just opened at the time we started our charter. So we've been with them since the beginning, and they do treat us quite well. But every day's a challenge. The personalities of people. That's another challenge. The church that I left, it was all he said, she said. And it got very, political and negative. And it's a big challenge in churches, especially when you have boards and pastorals that don't work together. Well, that's not my job, that's their job. No, that's not my job, that's their job. But it's everybody's job. Like, it doesn't, you need to work together for a common goal. So, those are a lot of the challenges with the organization today. And I have to say, I probably have 20 people who come to Attunement every week, but because of dual membership, will never be a member. But do they come every week? Yes. Do they support the church every week? Absolutely. Do I care that they are not actual physical members? Heck no. Do they still greet everybody and pass out hymnals? And they do more than sometimes the members do. I mean, I have to admit to that, but don't let this recording get out. You know, it's just different challenges. And, you know, with Plymouth, it's a whole now, like, how do you get past that negativity and the stigma of the church? And that community is much more metaphysical, which I'm really not into, than attunement, which is 100%. They want to hear about the principles. They want to, you know, talk about the philosophy. I'm still trying to grasp where I'm going out there. But, you know, I refuse to let another church close, and I'm going to do my damnedest to keep it open. And, you know, I've set them up. I've donated everything they need now to go hybrid. So, you know, starting in another month, we should be up and running hybrid wise, which I'm hoping will help, you know, get people through the door with advertising speakers from outside of the local area. So, and if you can't tell, I do love what I do. It kind of just spews out of me. But when you see somebody come through the door hurting and not understanding natural law, and when that little light bulb goes off and you see them the next week and they're all and you know that what you're doing and saying is actually working, it's that beats every little negative thing that happens to you. And I hang on to those days. So that's about it for me.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. Thanks. So we have one last question, and then we'll open it up to the group. If you could just each offer a couple of thoughts on what do you see for churches in the future, and a couple of thoughts on your vision for that. Okay, Charvonne.
So what I would like to see for churches in the future is we have more churches that are both online and in person. To be an inclusive community, we really have to live the word inclusive, because there are people who can't leave their house. There are people who are living someplace where they can't start a church. They're small town. For one in specific that I think of, she lives in a very, very small rural town, and it's very, very old, and it's very, very one way of thinking. And for her to step out, first of all, if she stepped out the box, she probably gets, you know, they probably be torches at her front door. And second of all, she'd have nobody show up for her church. And then for the churches that are in person, because I saw this with West Dallas, which I loved, is that being more connected to your community, know your community. Sometimes you've got to kind of flow. If your community, like JoAnn was saying, she's got a church that is in mostly a metaphysical area. We're spiritualists, and we believe that anybody, and I believe it's in the spiritualist manual where it says, we're never to tell anybody how to love or serve spirit. That's not our goal. Let everyone come to the God of their understanding in whatever way makes their heart sing. And sometimes you got to kind of like go, okay, so you're a metaphysical community, but there are some things in the metaphysical community that ties spiritualism together. And then, of course, giving them that opportunity to see that you got tools, but you got those tools because of your insecurity of your connection with spirit. And we're going to let you use those tools until you start letting those tools go. Because at the end of the day, it's all about coming and communing with spirit and with each other and moving humanity forward. So that's what I would like us to see, is to be more conscious, be more involved in our communities. Whatever your community is, figure out what the pulse, and being there for those who need us. It's not a popularity contest. It's who needs to know that they are loved, and they will always be loved. Who needs that gentle hand? Who needs that shoulder to cry on? For the past 2 years, my phone has been ringing off the hook with various different individuals throughout the entire country calling me to talk because the pandemic or scared them or whatever. And they saw me as somebody that they could talk to. What bigger gift could I ever receive? That I am putting out that energy that says, I am safe, I can comfort you, and you feel that even though you met me for 5 minutes 30 years ago, you thought of me when you needed spiritual love and support. And that spirit, and I trust spirit immensely to remain that open channel, even when I get frustrated. And I do. Even when I'm like, dude, I got stuff to do. But spirit's like, nope. This person right here needs you. You're going to stand right there while we heal through you. Okay. And I'm like, fine. Because that is, for me, that is my purpose. That's how I see my purpose. And I've always felt that it was a global thing. I believe borders is a man-made thing. Separation is a man-made thing. That they don't exist. It's not real. It's a man-made concoction. Because when we transition to the spirit world, what wall is over there besides the one of your creation? I would like us to not be so needing to be in boxes, to be categorized like we have to be this way or you got to be this way. I'm not talking about the general guidelines, because every organization needs a general structure, needs a general guideline, or you're all over the place. I totally understand that. But in terms of like what Pam was bringing up earlier with the dual membership, or JoAnn's bringing up with the dual membership, why I'm sure there was a time and place why that was important, but why is it now? And let's rethink that. Say the answer should never be because that's the way we've always done it. And we know that. Because if we want to move humanity forward, we have to move ourselves forward with it. And so that's what I would like to see, as the global community actually becoming the global community of spiritualism.
Thank you, Charvonne. And JoAnn, would you go next? And then we'll wrap up with Pam and open up for questions.
Sure. So where do I think our churches are going in the future? I see, being the NSAC secretary, a lot of churches that have buildings are definitely suffering. They're really hurting financially. So I really see shrinking down and then rebuilding. But I don't see this religion going anywhere. I actually see it, moving forward. We have to. If we're going to survive, we need to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and do what Charvonne's doing. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it was, I'm a spiritualist. Today it's like, hey, how come that's not on the application on my medical form? It should be, right? So that's where we're on that uphill stride. We just need to, keep the philosophy of this religion going and keep preaching and be open. This religion was never black or white. This religion was always about, okay, could be, okay, that's a good thought. Well, okay. It was about a melding of religions that made spiritualism. And we're supposed to continue to grow. That's why the principles are not dogma nor creed. So as we learn and understand, I think we all need to reassess where we are in the pandemic and where this organization is going to go in the future, because that's going to define us. That's really my vision, is to just keep growing. And if anybody wants to know, there are charters available through NSAC. I mean, starting a new church is awesome. If you do not like where you're at, It's a very simple process, and, do it. I recommend it.
Thank you, JoAnn. And Pam?
Well, I don't think I could say anything in any better way than Charvonne and JoAnn have already said, but just to sum it up, I think for the future, I'd like to see us just improve on all the expanded possibilities, all the opportunities that really have been revealed since we've gone through this pandemic. It's really given us a good awareness of how really expanded our spirits can be. And I think it's very exciting. So what I see, the technology and improving on the use of it so that we can keep this global expanded spiritualism message going out everywhere. I think it's been wonderful. I've seen that through the wonderful work done by the LMCM Club with the Hydesville Day that included spiritualists all around the world. It was wonderful. So I see nothing but exciting possibilities ahead. So thank you. Thanks for doing this too, Ms. Mary. Thank you.
I hope everyone's enjoyed the robust conversation and the opinions from so many different kinds of churches, right? All at different stages, different lengths of service time, and different ways of doing things. So we'd like to open it up for questions. You can put it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand and the reaction button. Just see if you have anything else that you would like Charvonne, JoAnn, or Pam to comment on. Michael, yeah.
So a lot has been talked about today about, where folks have come from, how they've come to spiritualism, the churches that they built, and all of that I think is fantastic. And I love the ideas and, all the progressive thinking. My question is this: what are we doing as an organization to encourage and to further grow the people that serve spiritualism, the credentialed workers? What's the thinking in that realm for growth and growing your church?
JoAnn?
For the churches that I'm involved with, I have a lot of people who have started the Morris Pratt Institute learning. I push everybody in that direction because that's my future. If the church is to succeed, we have to keep, pushing the education out there. So I try to encourage anybody and everybody to do it.
Yeah, Pam?
Yes, I was going to mention also, I think that the NSAC clubs, the LMCM club, the minister, like you're doing today, all the different clubs are really so much more actively presenting possible workshops. Sometimes I, for myself personally, I try to put what I can in the newsletter, but I don't know the words. I think there could be a better way to let folks know about the classes, but I'm not sure how. I don't know. I don't think everybody, I don't know. I attach on the newsletter, usually the NSAC newsletter, which talks about those opportunities. So I don't know if there's a better way to promote all the things that are going on through the NSAC clubs, but I'd like to see more people be aware of those things, and I will make it my job to do so at our church. Thanks.
Yeah, Charvonne?
And in our church, obviously we're not at the organization level, we're just a church, and we're online. So everything we do is online. Everything we advertise is online, and we use our website a lot. So if you were to go to our website under the PRSS Society, because we have a Psychical Research Society page, and we've started it as part of our church. We also have, like, if you're interested in studies, and then because I am the president of the LMCM club, I will do an email out to the LMCM clubs like, oh, by the way, check this out if you're interested in that. And I try to kind of make sure, because I have to work the online world, I have to try to make sure that I can put that information everywhere there is possible for people to see. And that's just as a church, I can only speak as for our church. That's how we try to keep everybody abreast. And I try to do a crossover, like in our newsletter, we always have a link to the NSAC newsletter in our newsletter. So I hope that answered your question.
I would just add the thought too, that what I heard all three of our panelists talking about was the focus on individuals, right? And trying to encourage them on their unique path or to do what their passion is. And sometimes I think that work, which is so critical to a church, is often invisible also, because it can be very private conversations. So I agree with everything you're saying, but I want to acknowledge all the work that I know that happens. And perhaps because it is supporting one person, it might not be seen. And all of it is important, right? All of it is important. And I saw that we had a comment in the chat about needing to attract young people too. And that's, part of the question, I think, is related to that. Yes, Charvonne?
And I just want to piggyback off of that. In terms of the individual support, I actually set up a Zoom meeting with everyone that comes to my church who are either interested in being a part of our church or even just want to talk. And I will actually schedule a Zoom meeting and sit with them for an hour and go over with them. And as Rosemary says, it is a private behind the scene conversation, but I also keep a list of what I know is going on out there. I'm a connector naturally. So that's my natural thing, networking and connecting people in different networks. So and I've always been told if Charvonne can't find it, it doesn't exist. So, but yeah, that's a lot of the work behind the scenes in terms of the individual promoting and supporting and growing our individual, and you don't have to be a member of my church for me to plug you in wherever it is that you feel like you want to be plugged in. I just don't limit it. I just don't like limit. I like endless possibilities. I just am huge about that. So sometimes people get overwhelmed and I'm like, okay, we can break it down one by one, but I want that to be an endless growth in terms of bringing everyone into that want to receive, because that's important distinction. Want to receive. I'm not forcing this on you. Mm-hmm. If you're open to receive, here's the information I have to give.
Great, thank you. And Robert, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. I have a question. I'm going to be starting my own church this year, and thank you. And I had an idea about bringing the churches together in the Bay Area to hold an event. My idea was to bring them together and hold a church service on a Saturday aboard the USS Hornet. And I thought that'd be a really cool idea. The problem is my church is going to be independent, and I'm worried that an independent church and a national church might not mix together. There might be some conflict there.
I want JoAnn first and then Charvonne.
Hi, Robert. No, there should be no conflict. When I was a missionary, and I think Pam could probably answer this question, we talked to every church, whether it's independent, just starting out, not, NSAC, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, I'll stick my hand out to any church or any person who wants to talk about spiritualism. I think some personalities of certain people you may have a conflict with, but as a general whole, I think that's a great idea. That's how state organizations, associations started. Let's get all these churches together and see what we could do as a group versus solely. And we all know the power of prayer. If we all got together and prayed for one thing, we could see it blossom and happen. You're going to start an independent church. Kudos to you. And, I'd love to see some information about this venture because it sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Charvonne?
Oh my gosh. First of all, echoing JoAnn, yes, this sounds so exciting. Let me know the dates. If I can get out there, I will totally attend. And as far as working with independent church, again, we're online. So there is I can only work with the NSAC. It's any spiritualist or any people who have come through spiritualism. We will connect, we will talk, we will bring it. And that's how you reach more people. It's also part of how you reach more people, because the truth of the matter is, as an organizational level, we need people. without our churches and without our churches growing and without our churches outreaching and being involved in the community and networking and being willing to work with everybody, it's how we grow. And without it, we're going to be stagnant and not growing. And that's a charge track. So I, as JoAnn said, you might have personalities, and that's a different conversation. But in general, as spiritualists at our core, we welcome everyone who wants to grow in the light of spiritualism.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Pam?
No, I think JoAnn said it well when she talked about like the missionary approach. Yes, that we talk to all types of churches, people starting a new church and people, we had an experience of someone that was an independent church from an independent church in the San Diego area who wanted to find out about their church becoming part of the NSAC and ended up that he became a member of our church because it didn't fit. So, and there's just all kinds of possibilities. So we just have to be open. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's one question in the chat, and then Norma, I see your hand up. Bobby asked, what support from NSAC board would help the new online churches? Any thoughts on that?
I take it that's my question. Oh, that is a good question. I guess part of it would be, okay, so in my case, we have our bylaw that says that I must be in a public meeting place within 2 years of starting a church. And since the church has started online and our focus isn't about being in a public meeting place, which I don't know what that looks like yet, but don't worry, I have a backup plan. I always do. I guess I would like to see support in that bylaw being inclusive of online as a public meeting place, because I don't know how else you're going to get, I don't know how more public you can be when you're online and your Zoom link is out there and anybody can attend in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in terms of supporting an online church, the membership requirement, either we change the dual membership or we don't have as high of they must be members, paying members of your church to attend. Because the truth of the matter is, as JoAnn had said earlier, half of my congregation is a member of a different church. Mm-hmm. And not that they don't tithe, and not that they don't come and support and love and pour into us, but they're already a member of a church. And then the new people out there, they don't think in the way, people who are not spiritualists or looking at spiritualism, especially in the online world, are not thinking in the way of, oh, I need to become a member of your church. They're thinking, is it me coming and tithing and attending your classes and supporting you enough? Why do you need me to sign a piece of paper? Because that's a different way of thinking. I mean, let's really think about the membership process. Was it, is that something that we created 50 years ago because that's the way all the churches did it? And that's that sort of thing. Beyond that, I'll have to think about it. I don't know what else.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what else.
All right. Thank you. So I know we're coming near time, but we'll see if we can squeeze in these last 3 questions. So starting with Norma.
Thank you. I am impressed by the different insights that you all have provided. I identify my experience with our church with JoAnn's. We don't have a building either. And I also identify with Charvonne because we're working now we're in hiatus. So we'll be working on how do we work with incorporating that online element, especially for our Canadian members who are there during the summertime. off and on. But I would like to suggest that maybe the club think about offering a training in change management, because the things that hold us up a lot and are what people expect when they come in who have been members for 30 years. They're supposed to be like this, supposed to be like that. And to present so much at one time, it would just scare them to death, you know. I mean, and so I think people want to grow, people want younger members, but we don't know how. And I know I've been looking in my books, you know, about change management, but I think a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to do that type of study, and practical things that people can do, what it means, and this is something that would be very helpful, I think. And I also would say that having the younger people, well, I don't know, some of you remember when I introduced that I was going to have a youth meeting, and we'd have it in Phoenix in July. I mean, and there was a whole group of us, right, Charvonne? We worked out I'd call it a syllabus. We work out the training, what we were going to do, how we were going, and then all of a sudden I was charged with age discrimination. I mean, our median age is probably around between 55 and 60. I don't know, I'm just guessing here, but that's what seems to appear at the conventions. And having to deal with, you know, all of these issues that arise. I mean, it's like having a kindergarten party and you invite a sophomore from high school. Well, enough said. But at any rate, I do really want to commend you, the three of you. You've shared a lot. I don't think, I mean, I certainly have learned from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Norma, for those thoughts. And JoAnn?
I did one small change in our church service, and I seem to be attracting not a young crowd, not teens, but maybe 30s or 40s. And that's literally changing one of the hymns to a more modern, everyday piece of music. We don't sing it in our church, but I play the music and let them listen to the words. And just that upbeat, newer, modern music has attracted a lot of younger people, because we still sing the old hymns, because I personally like some of the old hymns, but just adding that one little thing has definitely triggered. I see the youngers starting to come in, and I'm still keeping the elders satisfied.
Thank you. Thanks. I also, before we jump to Alexis, I just want to offer one resource for people. So in my profession, there is a resource I've come across recently called freewill.com. And while it's focused on building fundraising support, it's a company that was created and is run by the millennial generation. And they do an incredible job of collecting research that helps if you're not part of the generation you're trying to reach out to, understand behaviors and demographic changes, and all of the seminars are free. So freewill.com, if you're so inclined. I have found it to be a tremendous resource. So Alexis, you had your hand up. I know we had mentioned your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah,
okay.
we can.
JoAnn knows me as a resident of Lilydale, but I had my own church in West Virginia, and I'd like to share with you. Now, I don't know if everyone can do it, but I'm a licensed teacher. So I went to the school system has adult education at night, and I ran classes. I didn't say it was spiritual. I said, be your own psychic, I ran a class for meditation. It was a miracle. One of the ladies who came to that class, Be Your Own Psychic, brought her entire family to our church. So that brought a lot of people. Of course, I talked about the church. So that might be an idea. I don't think you have to be certified. I think the adult education, so you might look into that. The other thing I do want to emphasize, it's been about 20 years and I have been saying the same thing. If we do not attract young people, I'm 74 and JoAnn knows the church I belong to, everyone's old. We don't have a single young person in that church unless a grandmother invites her grandchildren, family. When we die, there's no more church in Lilydale. And the Lilydale Spiritualist Church has been there for how long? 100 years? It's gone. If we don't do something seriously, and somebody just said, I'm fine with someone 30 being called young. For a while when I was here, we invited people, young people. There's one of these training centers down the road. I don't know what it's called. They're troubled young people. We had them come over on Sunday years ago, and that was very rewarding. When I did have my own church, we were very active in the community. Nobody had to know it was spiritualism. But when they had clothing drives, we gave clothing. When they had food drives, we gave food. And after a while, people began to know who we were. But I will also say, finally, the newspaper, advertising in the newspaper, waste of money. So I'm glad you all had this. It was very enlightening. And I will bring this information back to my church.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Pat, I saw that you had the comment in the chat. Did you want to add to that?
Yes, I do. I'd like to do a point of clarification when we were discussing of whether or not the NSAC board, what they do or do not do to support churches. And I heard comments about dual membership and having to have a physical location within 2 years. The board does not have the authority to do that. That is, the member has to submit a proposed bylaw to the NSAC secretary before 1 August, and then it goes before the delegates. And then at convention, we discuss it and vote on it, so that the board does not have that authority. And if there's something in the NSAC bylaws that we're not comfortable with or we believe need to be updated, it's our responsibility to submit that proposed bylaw in time and then go to convention to support it.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Pat.
You're welcome.
And Pam?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Pat, because I think that really helps. And I think that's one of the reasons I like being a spiritualist, and I've stayed being a spiritualist and part of an organization. I'm not really organizational, but I believe the structure is a wonderful place for us to be free to come together at convention, to represent our churches and our congregants and our members, and come and vote on the things that we want to change. I think that was well put. Personal responsibility is one of our greatest principles and empowers us to make the changes that we want to be, but we have to go and vote. So I think that serves us well in our social, collectively in America, as well as in our church. So I'm all for that, for voting and taking the responsibility. And so that also lies on us, on the pastors and the board members who are familiar to understand how the organization works, so that we can encourage folks to express their opinions, to elect delegates, to go to convention, or to submit the bylaw changes that we wish to see. So thanks, Pat.
Thanks. And Charvonne? And then we'll wrap
So
up.
I was just answering the question. I'm fully aware of the bylaw process and how to amend the bylaw. However, the board can also recommend the same bylaw change.
Thank you. So I know we could have lots more conversation and want to be respectful of time. And we've already gone over a little bit, but thank you all for hanging in there and supporting this important discussion. Thank you to Pam and JoAnn and Charvonne for giving so generously of your time and your thinking and your experience, which helps us all to learn and grow and to make this organization for spiritualism even stronger. So thank you all so much for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'm sure for any of the panelists, if you want to talk with them more, they seem very approachable to me, and I'm sure it would be fine to reach out to them. So, and they're all nodding. So, okay. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.